Stangibelisco here, proprietor and operator of amateur radio station W1GV, Whiskey 1 Good Vibrations. A little information for you in case you don't already know. You might want to come to Wyoming for your summer vacation in August, or at least for a little while. Because on August 21st, 2017, roughly at midday, the path of a total solar eclipse will cross through Wyoming. It'll enter Wyoming on the northwest side near Yellowstone, cross the state through a number of small towns. It will miss Cody, but it will almost directly strike Casper, and I would imagine the Casper area is probably pretty much booked up already. But it will also pass through a number of smaller towns in eastern Wyoming that themselves might be booked up, but near which some fairly non-populated areas are that you might yet book. I live in the black holes of Dakota Territory, United States of advanced technology. And one of my advanced technologies includes a Celestron 8 Schmidt-Cassegrain reflecting telescope, complete with a sun filter that pops right over the cap, right over the opening of the telescope. Although totality, the path of totality will not cross the black holes, it will come very close. And it isn't much of a trip down for me to drive into northeastern Wyoming or possibly western Nebraska and some of the smaller towns there, and set that scope up. The weather is clear much of the time in the middle of the day in the summer in that part of the country. Towards the afternoon, you tend to get thunder showers, but the eclipse should occur before that time, and it's a pretty good bet the weather will be decent, and I hope to get down to that part of the country on August 21st, 2017. I have some physical limitations that might make it impossible for me to do that, but that old telescope will fit into a footlocker that I can stash in the trunk of my modest little hard luck number 9 and putter on down there, set up the scope, and the heck with the camera. I'm not, people are so busy trying to photograph these events that they miss the events themselves. I plan to simply watch the eclipse through the telescope when the totality begins, and it'll last about 2 minutes in the middle of the day. You can you can Google around and find the exact path and the exact times for just about any town in the United States. There are, of course, other places, but the weather doesn't cooperate as well in many of those places. You may more likely encounter an overcast day. Wyoming is just about as clear as it gets, and set up shop, they'll be somewhere along the side of the road where I can set that old Celestron 8 up, and when totality begins, as I understand it, it'll be safe to pop that sun filter off and just make sure that I don't leave it on too long, because if the sun in its full brilliance should happen to focus on the eyepiece of a telescope without a sun filter, it'll crack that eyepiece and destroy it, not to mention what it'll do to your eyes. But nevertheless, I plan to witness that without any cameras, and simply because there'll be plenty of people taking pictures of the bloody thing, for crying out loud, and it'll look the same on every film pretty much, but it'll only look one way, in the eyes and mind of a live witness taking it in its full grandeur, and that's what I plan to do if I can. I remember once, just as a little aside, that there was a space shuttle launch about to take place, and I was in an airport in Miami awaiting a flight to, I believe it was Madison, Wisconsin, which then went on to, maybe it was Milwaukee, and then went on to Madison, and then to my hometown of Rochester, Minnesota. And I heard on the radio that there was going to be a space shuttle launch, but it had been delayed. So I got on my flight, and I told the stewardess, I remember that they said the space shuttle might be launched sometime right about now. You might check with the pilot and see what's going on. And then she said, oh, sure, I'll check. This was Northwest Airlines. And I went back, or the stewardess went back into the cockpit. And a few seconds later, the pilot's voice came on and said, there's a space shuttle launch planned in about 2 minutes. And it's going to take place from Cape Canaveral, and right now we're right about over Orlando. We should have a great view out of the right side of the aircraft in about 2 minutes. Well, I was on the right side of the aircraft, and I had a window seat, but no camera. Well, needless to say, they broadcast the countdown on the intercom in the airplane. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, liftoff. And I got to see, from 50 miles away and 30,000 feet in the air, a launch of the space shuttle, and watch the arc as it rose into the sky. It fortunately was not that hard luck space shuttle launch that exploded. That would have been a very dramatic and very heartbreaking experience indeed. But I took that whole scenario in with an open mouth and saucer big eyes, no camera. And I remember it in the camera of my brain to this day. The pilot came back after that was all over into the cabin and said, was that cool or what? The only thing I could say was, it was cool. It was cool. And the eclipse will be pretty cool too. Weather cooperating, which it often does in the summer in Wyoming and Nebraska, especially in August. August 21, 2017. I hope I didn't say 2007. I'm absent-minded enough. I'm lucky enough to remember that date. But I've burned that one into my memory, just as I've burned the space shuttle launch into my memory. And if you go down there this summer, you can burn it into your memory as well. Perhaps with the aid of a Schmidt-Cassegrain 8-inch reflecting telescope. But watch those eyes and watch that eyepiece. 2 minutes is about the duration of totality. Keep that in mind too. Stangibelisco's signing off. Until next time, so long.